What's up, golf addicts? DB here to give you everything you have to know about TPC Potomac at Avenel Farm. If you're betting or you're playing DraftKings, DFS in any format, maybe you're doing player props on Prize Picks, something like that. This is the intel you have to know about the golf course, including some player quotes that I think are going to be really key when it comes to handicapping this event, especially based on weather. We've seen this event played a handful of times, a lot of times back in the early 2000s, but they did a big renovation in 2015. So we saw it host the 2017 and 2018 Quicken Loans National. It played different both of those years based on weather. So I've got some quotes from back then that we're going to look at. But this year it's playing host to the Wells Fargo Championship, and we may see it again in the future. TPC Potomac is a popular course. Let's get right to some key features. All right, key features of TPC Potomac. It's got some pretty creeks, some pretty streams, kind of slopey terrain, and challenging bunkering. They're saying they're Scottish style bunkering. This is post the Fazio and Pete Dye assisted renovation that took place in 2015, probably to make it a pretty typical TPC style golf course. Obviously, Pete Dye's had his hand in a lot of those. So that happened after 2015. So I really think a lot of the things prior to 2015, the Booz Allen Classic, a couple of Corn Ferry Tour events, probably aren't worth looking at for this, because it was a major renovation. Both of the par fives here are pretty long. By the way, this is a par 70, about 7,100, a little bit more. Plays about 7,100 yards in Potomac, Maryland, obviously. So both par fives play pretty long. They make it tough to hit in two. So I think it's going to give an edge to some of the better wedge players. I mean, there's a par five over 600 yards. There's one at like 590 something. Not very reachable for most of the field. And even the longer hitters are not going to have a ton of eagle opportunities here. One of the par fours is drivable for most of the field. That's number 14. It plays a lot of times less than 300 or like 280 something to the front edge. And there are three other short par fours that are going to give every player in the field likely a wedge in. So, while there is some length to this course being 7150 or so and a par 70, I do think that there's enough shorter holes. You're going to have plenty of wedge opportunities if you're hitting from the fairway. It is bent grass from tee to green. They aren't very large greens, and there are plenty of comments from players in years past about how difficult they can be, especially when it's firm and fast. We'll get to that in just a second. They've also commented on the shape of the bent grass greens in the afternoon, especially on the first two rounds. I will elaborate on that shortly here after we look at a player quote for all of you who are interested in some first round leader bets. So that's just kind of some key features here. While I'm getting into this, I'm about to hit some player quotes. Drop a comment here. TPC at Avenel Farm, TPC Potomac at Avenel Farm is, a course we all knew and we played on in the early days of PGA Tour on, PlayStation or whatever it was that you had, Xbox. I think it made its way on a Tiger Woods game or two. So I want to know in the comments, are you a golf video game person? What was your favorite one? Drop that in the comment. What was your most memorable course? Was it a Tiger game? Was it the year they brought out the Masters, on that? I'll never forget that. Wish I would have bought a copy and never opened one and saved that. That would have been a nice thing to have. Are you a Golden Tee guy? I've played Golden Tee. I suck at it. So I'd like to know that. Drop that in the comments. And while you're here, give me a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe. That definitely helps out the channel. Now I want to look at some key stats and trends for TPC Potomac. The average, now this is only for those 2 years, 2017 and 2018. All this comes from Data Golf. 2017, 2018, the Quicken Loans National Course. So we don't have a huge sample size, and therefore I'm not going to give you a whole lot of stats and trends here. And the course is played very different in both of those years. So take this for what it's worth. The average driving distance both of those years was around 284.6. That's similar to TPC River Highlands, which some would say is a comp course, as well as Sedgefield in terms of standard PGA Tour rotation courses, so excluding majors. So it's not like that's not a bomber's paradise by any means. It's kind of middle of the pack. It also kind of finished middle of the pack in terms of driving accuracy. It was around 65.5%, similar to what we see at TPC Sawgrass and Muirfield Village. A lot of the stats I saw, even some that I didn't put on here, it's hanging around Muirfield Village a lot. Like it kind of falls in the same place in the ranking of courses as Muirfield Village. The average this is key. This is a very key thing to take away. The fairways average just a little bit over 30 yards wide, but TPC Potomac ranks as the most penal when missing a fairway just ahead of Muirfield and Eastlake. it definitely does not help to be in the rough, right? It doesn't. We just saw another course previously hosting the Mexico Open where you could be in the rough and it was no problem. Almost sometimes it might have been just as good. I don't know if you got a fluffy lie or something. But this place at TPC Potomac at Avenel Farm, it is not. It did not prove to help people at all. Being in the rough, it wasn't one of those courses where it seemed like if you just hit it further than everybody else and you were still in the rough, you were okay. At least in 2017 and 2018. Now that's obviously before Bryson and the bomb and gouge stuff took over. I mean, Tiger played, and that wasn't his strategy whatsoever. Let's take one last look here at another key stat and trend. The green regulation number was about 64.4%, similar to Torrey Pine South, and again, Muirfield Village, and that becomes increasingly difficult as the week progresses if the weather allows the course to play firm and fast. That's a big if. You got to pay attention to the weather here. We saw two different versions of weather in 2017 and 2018, and we saw two different results. Now, one thing I didn't mention is in 2017, your winner was Kyle Stanley. He won at 40 to 1. He won at 7 under. He went into a playoff tied against Charles Howell III, beat him on the first playoff hole. So 7 under got you to a playoff in 2017. Well, guess what happened in 2018? Francesco Molinari won at 21 under. Okay. 21 under. He won by 8 shots. He went bananas on Sunday. 8 shots. He won at 14 to 1. Speaking of that, Molinari, Abraham Answer, and Kevin Streelman all hold the course record here at shooting 62. Andrew Landry and JJ Spawn also shot 63s. Those were the only pair of 63s between 2017 and 2018. So think about that. Think about those 5 players: Molinari, Answer, Streelman, Landry, JJ Spawn. None of those guys are big hitters at all. None of those guys are overpowering a golf course. Maybe JJ Spawn can move it out there a little bit, but it's probably just at average or slightly above average. You know, so when you look at 5 guys who, 3 who hold the course record at 62, 2 who were one shy of it in 2017 and 2018, that's an interesting group. All those players seem to be very correlated and have some of the same things, working for them. And this course in 2017 played as the 4th toughest golf course on the PGA Tour rotation that year. So it's something to pay attention to in terms of how the weather is going to treat these guys. All right, let's look at some player quotes. I want to get into some player quotes here. Let's start off here with Kyle Stanley. This was in 2018. All of these quotes come from 2018. I wanted to get them from 2018 after they played 2017 and knowing the conditions in 18. So Kyle Stanley was your defending champ at that point, which sounds laughable. He says, yeah, the course played very tough. The rough was up. The greens were quick. A lot of the par fours can play really difficult. Probably a golf course that caters to a guy that's going to hit a lot of fairways and a lot of greens. Pretty difficult to play out of the rough. Like I said, par fours are challenging. If you can play a lot of your second shots out of the fairway, you'll set yourself up for a pretty good week. Hey, thanks, Kyle. That sounds like, it sounds like you're really helping out the bettors and the fantasy players there. So fairways and greens is what Kyle Stanley's saying. Ricky Fowler, it's a great golf course, tee to green. If you drive the ball out of position, you're trying to fight to save par. If you miss greens, you have tough up and downs. It rewards someone driving the ball well and tee to green playing fairly clean or flawless, which is what Francesco Molinari did when he won. You can't really fake it around this golf course, in my opinion. So Ricky, another quote here. I'm looking forward to the course drying out. Last year in 2017, the course played really firm and fast. Again, that's why you had a 7 under make the playoffs. The rough was a little longer and it was thicker. I like it like that. I feel like it separates the field a little more to who's playing well that week and who's not. That's something to pay attention to based on the weather. If it's firm and fast, pay attention to what Ricky's saying. It can obviously play tougher, he thinks it tends to separate the fakers versus the guys who are playing really, really well, really well. He says, it will be good. It's nice to get a morning round. This is key. It's nice to get a morning round tomorrow. He was in the afternoon wave on round 1 in 2018. You get fresh greens. Like I said, they get a little marked up in the afternoon. So it is what it is. It'll all even out. And hopefully we get a good one tomorrow and get ourselves in good position for the weekend. So for you first round leader bettors out there, there's one comment and there's another coming. And if it's not coming, it's because I read it, but I didn't put it in here. Talking about these bent grass greens. I'm very familiar with bent grass greens. We play a lot of golf, down here with bent grass. There's a lot of golf that's played up in the Northeast, especially with bent grass, and it's a great surface, pure. The ball does what you think it's going to do. But it does appear that at least here in the afternoon, spike marks and all the, the pitch marks and things can cause it to be a little bumpier for those afternoon guys. And in fact, two guys in 2018 mentioned that. So something to pay attention to if you're playing a first round leader and everything else is equal on Thursday, you might want to lean the morning wave. All right, let's look at a couple quotes here from Tiger Woods as well as Mark Leishman. Tiger says, "This golf course is very simple. You have to drive it well. You cannot play it out of this rough. You have to hit a lot of fairways. The greens are tough to get to if you don't hit the fairways. And if with the rough being up, it's wet, and we may get some weather in here later today to make it more wet. And then the heat coming, it's going to make it grow thicker and thicker. So you got to hit fairways to have a chance. If you're not going to hit fairways, you're not going to have a chance." Tiger being very clear there. And also, this was obviously in 2018 leading up to you had more wet conditions than you did in 2017. And Tiger saying that actually doesn't, still doesn't help coming out of the rough. He says, "Yeah, it's been a few years since I played it. Looking forward to getting out there. First time playing this event here for me at TPC. Excited to compete. And this is one heck of a golf course." This is interesting. "It's certainly a lot more difficult than what I'd envisioned. They've got the rough up, the fairways are in. It's like a mini open here. So last year, single digits won, and we would be hard pressed to get double digits again this year." Now, Tiger, that actually didn't happen, right? We know that Francesco Molinari blazed the field and shot 21 under, but beat him by strokes. You only had a handful of guys get to double digits, so it did play tough. But like I said, I mean, it's a difficult course, especially in firm and fast conditions. So let's look at one more quote here from Mark Leishman. "I didn't feel right over the ball in the long stuff today. With it being a little bit soft, you can get away with missing a few fairways versus last year when it was firm, but you'd make a big number. You've just got to grind it out, hopefully make some putts and manage to do that." And they said, "What are your thoughts on the golf course?" He says, "I love it. I think it's in great condition. When it firms up over the weekend, it's going to get a lot better. It will obviously play a lot tougher when it's firm, but I really enjoy it. It's a great test. You got to hit a lot of great shots and make pars." So again, talking about the difficulty when it's firm and fast from Mark Leishman there. I want to look at some key stats and we'll get out of here. Key stats for me, obviously strokes gained approach is going to be there every week, along with in terms of iron play. Some of the stats that I like, long-term proximity 175 plus. You know me, if it's a proximity stat, I'm going to look at it long-term. I want a big sample size, big sample size. But this is, they're going to have some long irons in here. A high percentage of shots in those 2 years came from 175 plus on a lot of those, longer par fours, especially. But I also like long term proximity in that 100-yard, less, maybe 75 to 125 range, because you are going to have a lot of wedges. I mentioned some of those short par fours. Those long par fives are going to be 3-shot holes. You're going to have some wedges here. When I think about Andrew Landry, when I think about, Kevin Streelman, Abe Answer, those guys, great, good wedge players too, right? Holding course records, shooting 62s and 63s. The wedge play is key. Strokes gain off the tee and driving accuracy. I want to look at both. I want to understand, who are the guys strokes gain off the tee, because there are some shorter hitters that, they can hit driver on a lot of courses where a lot of the bombers, pull it back because they don't want to miss. RBC Heritage is a good example. Sometimes you see shorter hitters gain a lot of strokes off the tee because they're still hitting driver and maybe rolling it out there 280, but still keeping it in the short stuff, while your bigger hitters are scaling down to hit something 250, 260 that they can control. And this may be a course like that. So I want to see strokes gain off the tee, but I also want to know that the driving accuracy numbers are there. So that's kind of off the tee approach. I do want to look at strokes gained around the green, as it's a difficult course, and I really combine that with bogey avoidance. We find that there's a lot of correlation with those stats. Just if if you're missing greens, you're usually trying to get up and down to save par, so those things tend to show each other. And then putting wise, I want to look at two different versions as well. Long term putting on bent. So I'll probably look at 75 rounds, 100 rounds maybe on bent grass surfaces to see long term who seems to be comfortable or more comfortable on bent grass. But then I want to look at short term putting. That's kind of something new I've started doing, is also looking at just who's rolling it well right now coming in. Maybe I'm just looking at the last 12 rounds, because a guy like that that's just feeling confident with the putter, we know that's a lot of times just what it is. He may have a terrible split on bent grass greens, but he's hot coming in and he's confident and the hole looks bigger. So I think that can definitely play a part. And obviously, recent form is something that we're always going to look at when it comes to handicapping golf tournaments. So that's all you need to know about TPC Potomac at Avenel Farm. hopefully they bring this place back because it is a fun golf course. I like it. So drop a comment. Like I said, what's the golf video game of choice for you, or what was it in the past? Okay, drop that in there. Give me a like. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's have a great week. May your screens be green and bend over your bookie. See ya.